NASA and SpaceX launch Crew-9 mission to ISS amid NASA workforce cuts. Imagine a world where space exploration continues to push boundaries even as the very agency leading the charge faces unprecedented challenges. That's exactly what happened last Friday when NASA and SpaceX successfully launched a crew of astronauts to the International Space Station, ISS, marking another milestone in human spaceflight. But here's where it gets controversial. This mission unfolded amid a turbulent period for NASA, which is grappling with the loss of about 1/5 of its workforce, roughly 4,000 employees, due to federal spending cuts mandated by the White House. And this is the part most people miss. While the launch itself was a triumph of engineering and collaboration, it's happening against a backdrop of growing concerns about talent retention, leadership instability, and the agency's ability to maintain its core mission. At 11:43 a.m., a Falcon 9 rocket roared to life at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying the Dragon spacecraft with a diverse crew of 4. NASA astronauts Zina Cardman and Mike Finke, Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui, and Russian cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. Their mission? To spend 6 months or more aboard the ISS, conducting critical science experiments that could shape the future of space exploration and benefit life on Earth. Originally slated for Thursday, the launch was delayed due to weather, a reminder of the unpredictability that comes with venturing beyond our atmosphere. But let's dive deeper into the controversy. NASA has been operating without a permanent full-time leader since January, adding another layer of uncertainty to its operations. President Donald Trump recently appointed Sean P. Duffy as interim administrator after withdrawing the nomination of Jared Isaacman, a billionaire entrepreneur and private astronaut. Here's the twist. Duffy is already serving as the secretary of the Transportation Department, raising questions about whether he can effectively juggle both roles. Is this a sustainable leadership model for an agency facing such significant challenges? The concerns don't stop there. Last month, approximately 300 current and former NASA employees signed a letter of formal dissent addressed to Duffy, voicing their worries about budget cuts and policies they believe waste public resources, compromise human safety, weaken national security, and undermine NASA's core mission. Bold statement, right? But it underscores a growing tension between fiscal responsibility and the agency's ability to innovate and operate safely. Despite these challenges, NASA officials insist that safety remains their top priority. NASA will never compromise on safety, they stated. Any reductions, including our current voluntary reduction, will be designed to protect safety-critical roles. Ken Bowersox, Associate Administrator for NASA's Space Operations Mission Directorate, emphasized this point in a pre-launch briefing. He highlighted the complexity and risks of human spaceflight, from launch to docking, and praised the team's ability to compartmentalize and focus under pressure. It's impressive to watch, he said, acknowledging the dedication required to ensure mission success. After a 16-hour journey, the spacecraft is expected to dock with the ISS at 3 a.m. Saturday, marking SpaceX's 12th human spaceflight mission to the station. This follows their historic test flight in 2020, which carried NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. Meanwhile, NASA's other crew transportation provider, Boeing, continues to grapple with issues plaguing its Starliner spacecraft. After a failed mission last year with astronauts Suni Williams and Barry Butch Wilmore, NASA is requiring Boeing to conduct an uncrewed test flight before allowing it to carry humans again. If all goes well, Starliner could resume crewed missions by the end of 2026. So here's the big question. Can NASA continue to lead in space exploration while navigating these internal and external pressures? As we celebrate another successful launch, it's worth considering the long-term implications of workforce reductions, leadership gaps, and competing priorities. What do you think? Is NASA on the right track, or are these challenges too great to overcome? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Your perspective matters. SpaceX Crew-11 launch, mission overview and astronaut profiles. In a dramatic turn of events, the highly anticipated SpaceX Crew-11 mission faced an unexpected delay due to weather conditions, specifically cumulus clouds that appeared just before the scheduled launch. This setback means that the team, which includes a group of astronauts and a cosmonaut, will have to wait at least another day before they can embark on their journey to the International Space Station, ISS, led by NASA astronaut Zena Cardman. This mission is set to launch from Florida, with the next attempt now targeted for August 1, 2025, at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, contingent on favorable weather conditions. The Crew-11 mission was just over a minute away from liftoff aboard the Crew Dragon Endeavour spacecraft, when the weather forced a scrub. Spaceflight Now will provide live coverage starting approximately 4 hours before the new launch time. On Wednesday, the 45th Weather Squadron had predicted a 90% chance of good weather for the launch. Meteorologists had assessed that the likelihood of cumulus clouds interfering was low, but it turned out to be just enough to halt the launch. Steve Stitch, NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager, noted during a pre-launch briefing that the weather for abort scenarios looked promising, with winds and waves along the ascent path remaining within acceptable limits. However, he emphasized the need to monitor any potential showers or thunderstorms closely. Looking ahead, launch weather officers indicated that conditions for backup launch attempts might be less favorable than those on Thursday. A front moving into the southeastern U.S. over the weekend is expected to increase moisture levels, raising the risk of cumulus cloud violations on Saturday. Additionally, this front could bring a higher likelihood of showers, storms, and stronger winds along the ascent corridor, particularly on Friday and Saturday. For this mission, SpaceX will utilize the Falcon 9 first-stage booster designated B1094. This booster has a history of successful flights, having previously launched on the Starlink 1210 mission in April and the Axiom Mission 4, AX-4, in June. Although it experienced a liquid oxygen leak during its landing on the drone ship A Shortfall of Gravitas after the Starlink mission, pre-launch testing for AX-4 did not reveal any further leaks. Following a static fire test on Tuesday, which had been postponed due to a sensor issue, SpaceX replaced one of the engine controllers on B1094's Engine 5 due to some unusual readings, ensuring it is ready for flight. Approximately 8 minutes after liftoff, B1094 is expected to land at Landing Zone 1, LZ-1, at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. If successful, this will mark the 53rd landing at LZ-1, and according to William Gerstenmaier, SpaceX's Vice President of Build and Flight Reliability, it will also be the last time SpaceX uses this landing zone. The U.S. Space Force has mandated that launch providers must have their landing pads located at the launch complex from which the rocket departs. Gerstenmaier confirmed that SpaceX will continue to utilize Landing Zone 2, LZ-2, after LZ-1 is retired. The two landing pads are situated at Launch Complex 13, which will soon host Via Space and Phantom Space for their small orbital-class rockets. The Crew-11 mission will mark the 6th flight for the Crew Dragon Endeavour, which first took to the skies during the Demo 2 mission in May 2020. NASA and SpaceX have conducted extensive reviews of the spacecraft's various subsystems, as this is the first time a Crew Dragon will undertake a 6th flight. Initially, the Dragon was certified for long-duration missions under the Commercial Crew Program for up to 5 flights, but both NASA and SpaceX aim to extend this certification to allow for up to 15 flights. SpaceX recently launched its 5th and final Crew Dragon vehicle, named Grace, during the AX-4 mission. Among the latest enhancements made to the Dragon are upgrades to its heat shield and parachute deployment system, which were showcased during the return of AX-4 from the ISS. Gerstenmaier also mentioned that the Crew-11 pilot, NASA astronaut Mike Finke, will be wearing an upgraded intravehicular activity (IVA) flight suit designed for improved mobility. The Crew-11 team consists of 4 members who share a unique connection, as they were all initially assigned to different missions before coming together for this flight. Cardman was originally set to command the Crew-9 mission, but due to issues with the Boeing CST-100 Starliner spacecraft during its crew flight test, NASA decided to ground her and fellow astronaut Stephanie Wilson to make room for the CFT crew. Cardman was swiftly reassigned to Crew-11, but as of Thursday, it remains uncertain when Wilson will have her chance to fly. This mission will mark Cardman's first journey into space. Her pilot Finca is no stranger to space travel, as this will be his 4th trip to the ISS and his 3rd spacecraft to take him there. In a full-circle moment, his last mission was aboard the Space Shuttle Orbiter Endeavour on STS-134. Finca was also training for another mission, Starliner 1, alongside NASA astronaut and Starliner 1 commander Scott Tingle, as well as mission specialists Joshua Kutrick from the Canadian Space Agency and Kimiya Yui from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA. Yui is now serving as a mission specialist for Crew-11, marking his 2nd trip to the ISS after previously launching on a Russian Soyuz spacecraft a decade ago. He was part of the development team for a JAXA cargo vehicle called HTVX, which is scheduled to launch to the ISS this fall, and he will oversee its arrival and docking, similar to his role during the arrival of the 5th HTV spacecraft in 2015. Completing the crew is Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov, who is embarking on his first journey into space. He was initially training as a backup crew member for a Soyuz flight when he was removed from that mission by the medical board. Like 6 others before him, Platonov's opportunity to fly on a Dragon spacecraft comes as a result of the seat swap agreement between NASA and Roscosmos. These 4 astronauts and cosmonaut are set to spend a minimum of 6 months and potentially up to 8 months aboard the ISS, where they will conduct a multitude of scientific experiments.